Well, first of all, you need to acknowledge that there are no interruptions, just mismanaged inputs. Interrupted? Why? Your kid started crying? You had a kid.
I think we cannot control things, but sometimes we can be in control versus lose control. What's your take on it?
Yeah. I mean, control, and I don't know how it translates in many other languages, but certainly in English it could mean two different things. And when I say control, it's not about trying to control the weather or your kids or your boss, or the stock market. I mean, good luck. It's like having something under control. How under control is it your relationship to the stock market and your investments? How under control is it right now your relationship with your kids? How under control is it right now with your relationship with the weather? So it's really having something under control, like your car is under control while you're driving, a meeting is under control, that it's on purpose and focused. Your head is under control, your desk is under control, your email is under control. So sure. So having something under control just means it's stable enough so that I'm not trying to get control anymore. I'm trying to now use the system and the context to be doing bigger and better thinking and intuiting and whatever you do once the situation is okay. So if your kitchen's out of control, it's hard to be creative about spaghetti, right? So you want to get the kitchen under control so that then you can be crazy. So another way I say that is that your most creative and productive state, from my experience, is when you have the freedom to make a mess. But if you're in a mess, you can't make one. So whenever I'm got something messy, I'm going to try to clean it up so that it gives me the freedom to make another mess.
I hope my wife is watching this because when I cook with my 3-year-old son, we are the chef koch. We are big chefs.
Chef Simon.
Yeah. And then I say, now Federico, mise en place.
Yeah.
And the first thing we put everything in, and I enjoy this process so much.
Yeah.
Our audience asked us, how do I find focus? Because the next one will be, when I lose it, how do I get back on track?
Yeah.
But first, how do I get focused?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, you can't stop focusing. You're focusing all the time. If you're conscious, you're focusing on something. Whatever is on your mind is a focus that you have. You're allowing yourself to focus on whatever is on your mind, right? So when people say, how do I focus? They probably mean, how do I more appropriately focus on what I think I ought to focus on, as opposed to where my focus is going. So you can't stop focusing. All you'd have to do to really focus is to have let's just go light your building on fire, right? Or start an earthquake and watch how you won't have any problem focusing, because you get very clear about your outcome. Live, right, with as minimal pain, right? So you're going to be focused immediately. You can't help it. So you already have the capability to focus. What you may not have is a strong enough outcome that you've identified with that causes you to have that kind of specific focus, as opposed to focusing on other things. That's why I say, if you watch my first TEDx talk that I did at Claremont, 3 or 4 years ago, actually when you're in crisis, a lot of people relax more, because you don't have all the options. It just eliminates choice. Called live becomes your primary focus. And it gets you in your zone. So ideally, what you want to do is not wait till a crisis forces you to have that kind of focus. But the question would be, what would you like to have true, and how important is that to you? As you know, from a strategy standpoint, working with people, that is what the focus of a business needs to be, is what the focus of an individual needs to be at any point in time. Now, what are you really trying to accomplish? What really matters to you? And if nothing does, enjoy the fact that you can free focus on whatever shows up. So it's not about everybody should be focused on that. No, only if that matters to you. It could very well be that you need to kind of give up your focus, or give up trying to focus. Enjoy serendipity. Let yourself just enjoy what pops into your mind as it pops into your mind. That's what vacations are about, and that's what now new cognitive science research has basically validated, called your brain needs to rest from focus to be able to focus well. If you're not getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night, or taking naps in the afternoon when you need to, as opposed to coffee, you're sub-optimizing your focus. You need to daydream. give yourself about 90 seconds, and then you better get up and walk around so that your brain gets to relax. Because, now a good friend and a brilliant book out there, Brain Chains by Theo Compernoli. A lot of curated research about cognitive stuff, and primary thing is there's the aspect of your brain called archiving, which is once you've gone through the complexity of your day, like you and I have right now and all of this, at some point we need to stop. And our brain, a lot more has been going on even in our conversations here than we consciously could actually register or manage or optimize. So what we're going to do about this. But when we stop and rest, our brains will. And so the archiving process happens when you stop that kind of intense focus consciously. And you can do that either by daydreaming or certainly by nap. Sleep is the optimal way to be able to do that. So there's a lot of stuff going on here relative to focus.
So even having divergent or lazy activities would be part of raising focus for the day.
Yeah, and I used to think I'm just a lazy guy, so I love doing those kind of things. Now, given the new cognitive research, I'm just smart and sophisticated. I'm now optimizing my cognitive process because I'm going to go take a nap. But we understand, there's a reason for that.
Most inventions came during shower.
They came after that. You still need, interestingly, because the research that I've read, it does help to sleep on a problem. Simply because that allows you to go beyond your conscious conditioning and see relationships that your conscious mind would not see. So waking up with a solution to a problem is a fairly common event, but you have to have the intention to solve the problem.
So first, before
you need to want the answer, and then go to sleep.
Yeah, face it, work it through, and then let it go.
That's right. Yeah.
Letting go.
That's my screensaver. It says let go.
How can we possibly do that?
Relax. Focus on your breathing. It's the mindfulness people come up with that. I came up with it 35 years ago in martial arts. Just focus on your breathing in case you're in pain or in case you just want to be present. Be ready for surprise and people jumping you, right? Because that's a fast way to get present. And so that's a way to let go of fear of the past or regret of the past, fear of the future. Because those all come from the ego. Whose job really, our ego is really, its job is to kind of protect us and give us enough of a protective shell so that we actually go engage with the world, as opposed to being some sensitive blob that'll just dissolve when you walk out in the street. You need some sort of a shell or protection around you. You just you want that to be a support, not a limitation. But the limitation becomes you get hung up on the past, you get afraid of the future, and those things then will prevent you from being present. So control is the master human addiction. People are killing themselves and each other as we speak just to maintain or achieve a sense of psychological control that they feel like they don't have. And so, it's a very powerful driver. So learning to undo that or to not let that drive you and not be hung up by that is a real core to real freedom.
So now I had focus, but I get interrupted. What do I do?
Well, first of all, you need to acknowledge that there are no interruptions, just mismanaged inputs. Interrupted? Why? Your kid started crying? You had a kid. That's your job, right? Interruption. Your boss just walked in. I'm sorry, you took the job. Your boss is your boss. They have the right to control your allocation of resources. What interruption? What's an interruption? Something that you shouldn't have had let come into your life? Or something that you said, yes, I am letting that in my life, but I also want to do some other things instead of that. That's just management.
So take it, put it where it belongs.
Yeah, or stop getting it.
How to say no?
No.
In an appropriate way in a business context.
Yeah, we'll say, well, gee, Simon, that's a really cool thing you're asking me to do right now. That is such an interesting and fascinating thing. I just don't have the bandwidth to give that the attention that thing really deserves right now. Could you just write me a note, throw that in my in-basket, or send me an email about that? So I can give it the appropriate attention it deserves. Probably a more elegant way to navigate those kinds of things.
It's beautiful. I will write it down for our audience.
Or just go to work for somewhere that everybody does GTD, where it's quick and it's quiet.
Would you prefer a company with where everybody does GTD, or a company where everybody does holacracy but no GTD?
Oh, GTD is much better. And Brian Robertson, one of the founders of holacracy, would tell you that. He said if you had to choose, GTD is the choice. That's how he discovered holacracy, or formulated it. Was, you know, he fell in love with GTD, and it was a religious experience for him. He said, but when I walk into my company, it's not as clear as I can get for myself. So Brian and Tom Thomason, and the folks who developed holacracy, were just brilliant at how to try to manage, you know, an operating system that could handle the complexity, the exponential complexity that happens when two or more get gathered together in terms of understanding your agreements with each other.
Our community asked, how do I overcome procrastination? Now, first, what is procrastination? And
yeah, well, procrastination, I think somebody told me, I didn't actually look it up, but that the etymology of the word procrastination just means not doing something today, you know, that you could do today. Well, come on, how many things are you not doing right now?
A lot.
Yeah. How many things am I not doing right now? By the way, I was just in South Africa, and our new partner there, you know, William Elliott, fabulous guy. He's a psychotherapist, but he's a huge champion of GTD and now a master trainer there. And he starts out his seminars and his presentations about GTD with, he says, my number is 87. What's yours? And people go scratching their head and go, what? He says, my number is 87. He said, that's how many things specifically I am not doing now.
He knows exactly.
He knows, because before he does that, he counts them up. Here's all the actions on my action list. And he had 87. And he said, that's how many I'm not doing. You know, as you know, you can only feel good about what you're not doing when you know what you're not doing. So is that procrastination? No, that's just deciding to make a choice of that thing off the menu as opposed to the other 87 things I could have chosen to do. So it's glass half empty, half full. Are you feeling great that you and I talking right now is exactly what you and I need to be doing? Or are we both feeling crappy right now about, oh God, there's so many other things, you know, I'm not present because I ought to be doing that as opposed to this?
The guilt feelings.
Oh, just the encroaching lack of clarity and distractibility of the fact that your brain, you know, when you're holding it, if you're trying to manage this stuff in the office in your head, which as you know is a crappy office, you know, that has no sense of past and future in there. So if you can't finish it right away, your brain can handle only about 4 things and still manage those appropriately, you know, if you can't finish them in the moment in terms of keeping track of them and understanding what they are. So most people have a gazillion more than 4 things going on and banging around in there. And that's what's creating a lot of the stress, because that part of you thinks that they should all be being done right now psychologically. And that, obviously you can't do all those right now, so it creates automatic stress when you're doing that. So back to your initial question, procrastination, usually the use of the term out there is ordinarily used when people feel bad that they're not doing something. In other words, I should be writing that article right now, and I'm going to go play Scrabble on my computer, or I'm going to go water the garden, or I'm going to go drink, or I'm going to, I don't know, whatever people do, whatever we all do to say, that's ugly, I don't want to get into it, but I know I need to, let me go find something else that feels, you know, that relieving in some way, shape, or form.